see that. I didn't even realize that you did that so far back in helping people back then.
Absolutely. And my analogy to all my guys was, hey, if Einstein was holding a paper bag and he looked down in his paper bag and he's the only one that can see what's in there, and E = mc squared is in his bag, that's that concept that only he saw at first. And if he couldn't raise his head and look around the room and talk to all the other people in the room that were not as brilliant as he was and communicate his great idea, it would still be in the bag. And science, as we know it, would be totally different. I mean, if you can have a fabulous idea, but if you can't communicate it to people so that they adopt it and go forth and do good things with it, then it's just dead in the corner.
You know what? That said so true. Like, that just seems so obvious until you actually do that, because you're right. You want to be given that attention in the room. You want to be able to hear what people are saying, but take away something useful. Like you said, it could just be left in the bag if it's not communicated properly. So that's really, really said really well. Tell us about your experience in working in that sector. How did you get into that?
How did I get into speaking performance coaching?
Well, how did you get into working with the Army? So when you go back to that part, at the beginning there, think about how did you get into that?
So I am an electrical engineer by degree, and this is a pretty funny story. So I don't recommend this to people as a way to pick a career path. But so I was actually going to go into computer science. And I went to high school in Clarksville, Tennessee, and my best friend came in and she said, "Hey, I'm going to go to Tennessee Tech, and I'm going to take electrical engineering." And I looked at her and I thought, oh man, my best friend's leaving without me. And I said, "Hey, well, what's electrical engineering?" And she said, "I don't know, but it pays a lot of money and you have to be good at math and science." And I said, "Hey, I'm all in for lots of money and I'm good at math and science, so I'll go for electrical engineering too." And that is how I picked my life path. So I moved to Alabama and went to University of Alabama, Huntsville, and got my degree and started co-oping with the Army I believe I was a junior. When I was the low man on the totem pole. I was counting resistors in bins. I literally worked my way from the ground up. I was running Ethernet cable under trailers and fighting Black Widow spiders, and I don't do death. That was traumatic. So,
yes.
That was a traumatic detail right there. But yeah, so I worked my way up that way as a student and on up through the ranks.
And how did you like it there? Did you make great friends there? Like, what was your time like there? When you said you were working up in the ranks, what experience, when you look back at that time in your life, what experience do you feel you had from that?
Well, I'll tell you, I thought I would graduate and work there 2 years and leave. And a lot of people talk about a government job being stale and you just, sit around and you don't do anything. And I never found that to be the case. I worked at a research and development organization at Redstone Arsenal that does aviation and missiles. And so every time my interest changed, I was able to move into a job that helped me to learn that skill, that new thing I wanted to do, right? So my degree was actually in electrical engineering, but I showed up and they're like, "Hey, teach yourself to write assembly code." And for all my software people out there, that's pretty dang hard. They don't use like words. They use numbers and a few letters. Okay. So I taught myself that and just worked my way up that way. And then I guess I've written software. So the problem with writing software, everybody knows how Windows seizes up, right? You get the blue screen of death and you just have to take your computer to the Geek Squad or whoever and you just can't make the thing work. Well, that's what software does. It either works and you expect it to work. It doesn't work like super great. You don't look at your computer and go, "Oh, it's really working great today." It's just either working or it's not working. And it's really hard to get that attaboy for that was really great software. So I like attaboys. So I thought, okay, I need to move into a different area. So this was pretty funny. And this is for all the people that don't ask for what they want. And when you're creating a life you love, you have to learn to ask, because they can always say no, but if you don't let people know what it is you're trying to achieve, then nobody can help you do it, right? And so I was sitting around and I thought, I've written software for 15 years. I think I want to go to MBA school because engineers don't learn anything about business, right? And I knew my boss wouldn't approve it. You had to take technical classes. So I actually sat down and wrote a full-page letter to my boss's boss's boss on why it would be good for the Army for me to get an MBA. And I got approval to go to Auburn University and get that MBA within 24 hours.
That's amazing, isn't it? Wow.
Yes.
Isn't it?
And I could have stressed over that and, will they do it? I just thought, nope, I want it. I'll start here first. And if that didn't work out, I'll figure out something else. And by golly, they did it. So I'm very fortunate. The Army has been very good to me for sure.
No, that's excellent. So when you were going through different areas of the jobs and different things were coming to you, how did you make those decisions and know that they would be a good decision to move into that next thing?
Well, the first thing I did is I always had a strategy to stay marketable on the outside. I knew one day I would leave the Army and have a job somewhere else. So I never wanted to get just pegged on all I do is this one little Army widget. I wanted to be, so the MBA helped with that. Then we have military folks in our family. I'm just very patriotic. And then 9/11 happened. And so probably just about 3 years after that, they needed somebody to be the Homeland Security liaison and try to find applications for our military technology in the Homeland Security space, because why spend all that money again to develop the same kind of technology, right? Okay. So I volunteered for that, actually, and I did that at night after my software job, and then eventually that Homeland Security job, it grew into its own position, and so I was able to move over full time. So I've just followed my interests, really.
That's great. I hope people take that with them. I mean, that's a real nugget there when you say you followed your interest, and things have kind of developed then around that.
Yes.
Great.
And because when you do that, people don't work after hours on projects they're not passionate about. And that's what I had to do to build that job into something that was big enough to be a full-time job, and I could really go at it in a concentrated way, right? So if you're following your interests, you have more energy, more passion, more conviction, more confidence, and all those things help you to do a much better job. You get promotions faster, you get bonuses. When you're just knocking it out of the park, you're doing a great job, and that rubs off, your enthusiasm rubs off on the people around you. And so your team, as a function of that, if we're going to talk about that number one skill that's holding you back, if your number one skill is on point, then you're really going to take off for sure.
Yes, definitely. No, I mean, this is why I said at the beginning of the show that, I really associate with a lot of things that you say, because I believe them to be true, and I believe that if you follow those things, they can happen for you. Like you said about if you're not doing something with enthusiasm that you love, it's never a success. It feels like you're forcing yourself to do that in that area. It doesn't turn out well, and there's no success behind it. So that's your first point, is that you think that it should be done with passion.
Absolutely. I have had more people remark on my passion for what I do. That, just people ask me, hey, how are you today? And I go, man, I am fantastic. And it's amazing how surprised and taken aback people are when you say you're fantastic. Because most people are just settling, right? And it makes me sad. It really, 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 really makes me sad to see people settle, because most of the time they're settling because they don't have the courage to ask for what they want and go after it, because they assume they can't have it. And we need to flip that. And my motto is, there is always a way. Never take no for an answer. You just got to figure out another way to guess,
Yeah, I like that. I very much like that, because I also believe that as well. I believe that if you've got time and patience,
That's
and
right.
a different way, you think of it just a little bit a different way, I think that it can happen. And sometimes you don't realize that it's happened until, could be months later or even years later, and you're in the middle of it and you go, oh, there you are. This is happening just like I thought it was. And you don't always realize that it was something that you were still pushing on until it happens, and you go, oh my goodness, I've thought about this, and and talked about this, and now it's happening for me right now. And it's down to what decisions you made in the run-up to that. You know, it really, really is. Tell me a bit more about your when you came out of the army. Where did you move on from there? Tell me that kind of next stage of that, because you did some amazing things with that. You created your own jobs in different areas of that. Tell me around the decision making of when you came out and decided to go in a different direction.
Well, back in September a year ago, so September of 16, I started talking to the human resources people, and I was associate director of a division that did sensors and missile technologies, right? And so I started talking to human resources, and for me to retire with full benefits, a lot of planets had to line up, and people told me it was impossible. And I said, nope, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in 2017. And there's like, no, for you to get full benefits, they'd have to authorize early retirement. That's a thing called early retirement, because I'm too young. I'm 49 now, so I'm too young to actually retire, regular retirement. And they said, nope, this director has never approved that. Never approved it. And he says he's never going to approve it. It's not going to happen. Don't even think about it. And I'm like, nope, it's going to happen. And so I started getting my life in order so that I wanted to move to Austin. And so, and then that was September. So December, we hear, hey, that director has a LinkedIn profile, and his profile says he's looking for a job. And I thought, y'all watch this. I'm about to move. This is about to happen. This early retirement's about to go down. So sure enough, January, he left, and we got another guy in as the acting while they went through the selection process. Mm-hmm, yeah. So then it came February, and they're like, hey, so we're not authorizing early retirement, but if we were going to authorize it, who would take it? And so I threw my hand in. I jumped up and down, threw my hand in the air, because come on now, this is a big deal to have health care these days, right? Yeah. If I could get early retirement. And so March, sure enough, they opened a 2-week window for people to put in for early retirement. And I'd been told I might not get approved because I was an associate director, right? And so, but nope, it all came together. And so May 31st, I retired, and June 3rd, I headed my U-Haul down the road towards Austin, Texas, and got there on June 4th of this year. Or within the past year. So it's been wonderful.
I think it's an inspirational story, telling us that 27-year history. It gives people a bit of hope on what's waiting on the other side of some maybe corporate jobs or some long-term goals that they've got, or just retirement and what flexibility they can have on that other side of that. It doesn't have to be that you're doing the same thing constantly, forever. There's something else. I mean, there's new things that you're starting to do now that are all based on everything that you've become experienced in, the people that you want to be around, everything that you want to now teach. So almost from last year, everything kind of turned into the next part of Mary. Tell us. So we've gone through everything that you've done through your work, how it's got you there, how you had. I feel like you kind of manifested things to go your way.
Yes. I completely believe in manifesting. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, you can read The Secret, you can read up on the law of attraction, but I have absolutely, since I started reading about it and adopting that philosophy, I'm telling you, it's magical, the stuff that has come into my life, including that retirement. I mean, I basically, by the time I said I wanted to do it, just a few months later, I'm gone. And they hadn't offered retirement in 3 or 4 years. So that was kind of a big deal. And so you had to ask what happened, once I got to Austin. And so I hit the ground running. I think I went to my first networking event like 4 days after I got there with all my stuff in a truck, right? And so I sat down and started thinking, when you're in the technical world, you don't realize there's this whole world of coaching that's online entrepreneurship. It's really amazing the different niches you could go into if you wanted to. And I sat down and I thought about it. And so I've got a background as a country singer-songwriter. So, of course, stage, performance, all those kinds of things, songwriting. And then, which translates, country songwriting translates to storytelling. Storytelling relates to speeches and communications. It's all pretty
So it's
similar.
always going to come